Studies show that 50% of young people who grew up in church will leave the faith after they head off.
Right.
And that's kind of staggering when you think about that. Barna did a study a recent study, and the results said that only 4% of millennials that have gone off to college end up retaining a biblical worldview after graduation. Only 4%.
Right. So if you think of the statistic right here, 50%, and you look at your kids, the kids that your kids hang out with, right? And you just kind of look. So maybe there's a group of 10 kids. In fact, today at lunch, I was looking on Facebook and a memory popped up of our oldest son 13 years ago. And it was him doing, he was actually in the H building right over here doing drama. And I'm looking at all of these kids, and some of the kids we don't know anymore, we kind of lost touch with. But many of those kids in that picture are not serving the Lord now. And I think maybe out of that picture, there were like maybe 2. And there was probably 13 kids in the picture. So, I mean, if you take a visualization and just kind of think of the kids that your kids are growing up with, 1 out of every 2 kids will end up walking away.
Yeah,
and those are your next.
Those are church kids, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the Barna study is obviously it's all kids. And so when we think about that as parents, it's like, okay, how do we do our part? How do we be engaged? Mm-hmm. How do we be intentional? Because, it's really easy as a parent to just, go through life and expect that things were maybe the way when we went to school and the world wasn't crazy and it was normal.
Right.
Right, and that, if you took your kids to church and to youth group, and that the influences that the kids have today, we didn't have.
Right.
And if you think about, an average student goes and spends, roughly 1,300 hours, 1,300 to 1,500 hours a year at school, right? And they do that for 12, 13 years. That's 15,000 hours of time that they've had of just school, teaching that worldview. And if you're not in a Christian school, you're getting a lot of worldview. Now, the same kid, faithful kids. The stat says now, if we look at children's check-in statistics, parents bring their kids 1 out of every 4 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks, on average, right? But let's just say you're the faithful parent that every time the doors are open, you're here at church. Mm-hmm. You get a couple hours a week of youth, of kids ministry, 50 weeks a year, maybe you go on vacation. So you get 100 hours times the 13 years, so you have 1,300 hours versus 15,000 hours of indoctrination in their lifetime, their K through 12 lifetime. And can we see where maybe there's a challenge with why our kids are not retaining a biblical worldview?
Yeah.
And then if it's our responsibility as parents to invest in, not just to send them to church and it's the pastor's job,